In the 3 years of Overwatch League that have taken place so far, each year has had a player that was the signature face of the league. Year 1 there was XQC and Seagull, Year 2 there was DeFran, and this year we have Chipsa. If you know anything about Chipsa, you know that he has a pretty popular catchphrase.
Why am I so unlucky?
I'm so unlucky, dude. Even my sneeze timings are unlucky.
I'm so unlucky rings through the ears of thousands of fans. But how unlucky is he really? I mean, he got into the Overwatch League knowing 2 heroes, plays for one of the best teams in the league, and has won the only map he's played this year. Seems like a strange claim to call that unlucky. The fact is, there are players who have had much more unfortunate careers in the Overwatch League. None of these players are more prominent than Otto. Otto has had a truly unfortunate story when it comes to professional Overwatch. The Korean player started his career in 2017, joining the team MVP Space for Apex Season 3. Otto was rarely played due to the fact that MVP Space had star player Yaki on their team, who played very similar heroes to Otto. As a result, Otto was typically watching from the bench, seeing his team end 9th to 12th in Season 3 of Apex and 9th to 12th in Season 4 of Apex. Because Otto barely participated in any of the matches, he was certainly demotivated, but with the announcement of the Overwatch League came the potential for a new start as a pro player. The Overwatch League announced a Season 1 with 12 teams, with each team allowed to have 12-man rosters. This meant there were effectively 144 slots in the Overwatch League, and Otto wanted in. Unfortunately, none of these teams were instantly interested in Otto, and as a result, Otto did not immediately join the Overwatch League. However, one team would keep their eyes on the player after a rough start to the season, that team being the Shanghai Dragons. Going into Season 1, it was hard to find power rankings that supported the Shanghai Dragons, with most predicting them to be at the very bottom of the league.
They did start at such a low. They were the worst team coming in, and they've just been the worst team the entire time.
Obviously, Shanghai wanted to represent China well, since they were the only Chinese team in the league at the time. Shanghai wanted to go with an all-Chinese roster to represent the country with pride. For some reason though, Shanghai opted to pick up players from the Chinese team LGD Gaming rather than the obvious choice of Miraculous Youngster. This put a lot of people off from putting them high in the power rankings, and we soon saw that prediction was a smart one. Shanghai started off the season with a historic losing streak, and it was obvious that the situation was not going to improve. This led the Shanghai Dragons to look for a new set of players to pick up, but they decided that they were no longer going to stick to a full Chinese roster. The Shanghai Dragons picked up several new players to fix their problems, all of which were Korean. These players were Fearless, Geggery, Sky, and Otto. And let's just say, Otto was making an instant impact.
With his sight lines, and Otto knows these guys are there, perfect stick. Oh, he got 2 Gambler! Jayhawk's not going to save you there, he's trying to get away from you! You got cooties, fam!
Oh, and this is about the point B. Can they do it? Pine comes in at the last moment. Otto trying to win this duel to get it there, but Sabiel will be right there. Otto does get the kill on the Pine, but now Meko returns. Otto got Sabiel B2, fighting the 1v2, and he gets both kills. They don't complete even.
Unlike Otto's other team, he immediately found playtime on the stage. Not only this, but he managed to have multiple standout performances on a struggling team. The team still wasn't finding wins, but Otto's heroics were catching the eyes of multiple Overwatch League analysts.
He put that team on his back several times. Him, Fearless, and Geggery being the new additions to the team, they have elevated this Dragons team, and they are not an easy out anymore.
On map 3, the brawl goes to Li Zhang, and Shanghai puts on an incredible performance, seemingly easily beating Mayhem with a swift 2-0 thanks to Otto's incredible plays, who is consistently getting 2Ks and 3Ks to secure a team fight.
If Otto managed to look this solid on a bad team, imagine how well he would perform on a good team. Unfortunately for Otto, no matter how many games he played with the Dragons, they were still unable to find a win. The Shanghai Dragons ended Season 1 with a historic and infamous 0-40 run, a run that is not only historic in esports, but also sports in general. This was a devastating season for the Shanghai players, but it became even more devastating when the Dragons decided to remove almost the entire lineup, leaving most of the players without jobs. Otto was devastated after being removed from the Dragons. Despite all of the losses, Otto said, "It's a shame. I really grew to love everyone over a season. I wish I had known this was how it would end. Only regrets. Still, I had fun. Hard fought, everyone." Luckily for Otto, he performed better than players like MG or Sky did, and teams were looking towards Otto in the offseason. Season 2 was going to be massive for the league, since 8 more expansion teams joined the league, allowing for a max player count of 240. This was really exciting, since it allowed for new players to join the Justice and show off their skills. One of these expansion teams was the Washington Justice, who aimed to make a solid team for the new year, picking up many former players from the New York Excelsior, which was arguably the best team from 2018. The only issue with this was the amount of money that was rumored to be spent on these players and coaches. There were rumors flying around that the Justice were low on money and were willing to pick up any player they could get their hands on. Because of how promising Otto was and how he was a free agent, the Justice decided to pick up Otto for the flex DPS position. Despite the fact that the Justice picked up really promising players like Corey, Giannis, and Otto, people were still predicting a flop of a team. And unfortunately, nobody could have predicted the year of 2019 for the Overwatch League. In short, a contenders team known as GOATS found a new strategy where rather than running the typical 2 damage, 2 tank, 2 support, they changed to a lineup of 3 tanks and 3 supports. This put an insane toll on DPS players who now either had to learn Brigitte or Zarya, heroes that were not native to their role, or they had the option to ride the bench. Otto was one of these players that struggled. Typically, the flex DPS played Brigitte, so Otto played Brigitte at first. Unfortunately for him, he was absolute garbage at the hero. It didn't help that Justice had the excellent Corey on Zarya, a hero that he most certainly could not play comfortably. Justice would try everything. They would try running Otto on Zarya, didn't work. They would try swapping out their lineup, didn't work. It just seemed like the year was a flop for the Justice, and Otto would have another rough year. Luckily, the Justice actually picked up a few wins, but Otto went through a consecutive 37 losses before finally getting his first win on the stage.
This is my personal first win after losing 37 times. This was our 37th match, so I'm really happy with that. And
even though the team got wins, it didn't defeat the fact that they were an awful team. Luckily for them though, a new change was about to be implemented to Overwatch that would allow the team to meet its true potential. 2-2-2 lock was the dream for the Justice. It allowed Corey to play his signature heroes, of which he was world class, and Otto would finally get to play his comfort heroes. Otto would finally get to show off the fact that he was a good— Wait, Justice had another flex DPS player? Stratus, who is a promising Western flex DPS player, rarely found playtime during the era of GOATs, but once Stage 4 came in with the introduction of Role Lock, Stratus could finally show off his true colors. While Stratus brought the Justice to new success, Otto watched from a very familiar position, the bench. Stage 4 saw the best look for the Justice so far, and that look, unfortunately, didn't contain Otto. Just like the Shanghai situation, Justice decided to rebuild and kick most of the players that struggled throughout the year, including Otto. Otto's first year, he placed 12th place out of 12, and this year he placed 17th place out of 20, which would have been 19th out of 20 without Role Lock, which does not look great from afar. It's truly disappointing since he didn't look awful, but all of his results seem to show that he was not a good player. Otto was now left with no team going into Season 3. But with what seemed like a random chance of luck, the Hangzhou Spark decided to pick up Otto. The season had already started, and Otto was picked up by the org. This seemed like a really strange pickup considering that Spark already had 4 DPS players prior to Otto joining, but Otto fans were excited nonetheless. Unfortunately for Otto though, the Spark eventually picked up Architect from the San Francisco Shock, who is a star flex DPS player. Because of this pickup for the Spark, Otto has yet to see notable time on the stage this year. It seems like the Spark is yet another team Otto joined that found success without playing him. It's so disappointing to see this star player ride the bench once again, but that's just the luck that Otto seems to have. It's very disappointing that Otto has yet to show his true potential on a team. Everyone can watch gameplay of Otto and agree that he's very mechanically skilled, and every team that works with him says that he was a pleasure to work with, but he still hasn't shown the world his true potential. We can only hope that in Season 4, Otto can finally show off his absurd mechanics in a team environment where he can thrive. Thank you all for watching.
Set the